In this video, I'm going to go over the processes you can use to locate books for a particular history research project. So I'm actually going to suggest that not only going to the Murphy Library Catalog, but going and using what's known as the Universal Borrowing Catalog. So you click on Library Catalogs. If you start using these search terms, it's just going to search what's here at UWL and Murphy Library. But if you click on Universal Borrowing right down here, you're actually going to have access to the catalogs of every single UW system school. And the great advantage here is that between the holdings of all these different universities, there's actually an enormous amount of information available to you as a UWL student. In terms of research, this is actually the greatest boon you have of being a UWL student. Now, when you start off a history research project, you need to begin by brainstorming key terms that will likely yield you some relevant and helpful information for your research project. And I'm going to suggest that you actually use the advanced section because you can put in multiple search terms here. Now, most catalogs that you can search will give you some search tips. They'll indicate how you can possibly use different items. In this case, I've been playing around with this today. It looks like it's best not to use quotation marks around phrases you want to keep together as a phrase because you have this option right here. So that means that if you put in a term, say Native American, that it won't just search for American, because that'll show up in all kinds of works. It will only search for Native American, coming together. Let's say that you have a research project on Native American boarding schools, the history and experience of Native people in these boarding schools. So I'm going to suggest you do both Native American or American Indian. Again, selecting this as a phrase. So that'll search for this or this because it may be listed as American Indian, and that's important whenever you're coming up with these search terms. If you know there are separate spellings, different accepted spellings of things, you could put them both in. So Song era China, Sung era China, or Sung dynasty, Sung era, something like that. Those are all different terms that you could use this or function for. And let's put in boarding schools, again as a phrase. And then I've been talking to librarians, because this has actually changed recently. They would suggest searching anywhere when you're starting out a project, but that's pretty much looking at subjects more or less. So that's a pretty good place to start. It may take a moment for you to get results, and occasionally, believe me, you will get errors when you're doing this, and you may have to try it again at another time. I guess the system just becomes overwhelmed. But here are the results. I'm trying to just take a quick look at what we're looking at here. You'll see that the first ones... Okay, I was just looking to see if there's a way to subdivide by just what's available at UWL, and you can see that just under underneath these titles. Yeah, it's a little bit different from what I'm used to seeing. They've made a lot of changes recently. But in any case, this will show you where these items are available. So this one, if you go to Murphy Library right now, you go to the second floor stacks and look under this call number, and there are all kinds of guide signs throughout the library. You should be able to find this specific book, if that's one that's going to be helpful to your project as you see it. Now this did get almost 6,000 results, so there's quite a bit on this subject. Yeah, and oftentimes there are ways to subdivide these by either relevance, so it'll only give you what's both American Indian and boarding schools, that kind of thing, that'll come up first, rather than something like this, American Indian Studies. The title itself doesn't have anything to do with boarding schools, but I bet that the reason why this came up is because there is maybe a book chapter about boarding schools specifically. One thing that can be quite nice, actually, is when you find a book record, either in Murphy Library Catalog or using WorldCat, one thing that will come up are these subject headers, and these are Library of Congress subject headers. Every book that's in the Library of Congress has been assigned a series of phrases associated with it that describe the topics covered in the book. They've come up with general ones, and so multiple books will have some that are exactly the same. So the chances are off-reservation boarding schools United States history is probably a subject header for just about each one of the books that have come up. When you're looking at it on an online catalog like this, you can then click on it, and that'll give you a different set of search terms. I was talking to a librarian about this issue. There is some kind of error going on, so hopefully they will resolve this issue. If you do have something like that happen, you can certainly contact a librarian. You can call them, go in and talk to them, or there's an online chat function. You can let them know what you're experiencing, and they will tackle it as soon as they possibly can. But these subject headers can be quite another useful way of getting a different list of possible books. And if you actually get this book away from home, in those first few pages that just has sort of publication information, these subject headers will be listed as well. So if you are looking physically at a book and you want to search something similar, you can find out exactly how these are written out. And you can actually search for subject headers like that. Now let's say you're looking at a book that wasn't in that list. Oh dear. But rather one that's held by one of the other UW system catalogs. Okay, here we go. I had to reload this the search results. It wasn't working out for us well. But let's say you want to take a look at, I'm looking for one that we don't have here at UWL. Let's say this, Native American boarding schools. It's only held at UW-Madison and Stevens Point. It's not just over there in Murphy Library. And so in order for you to gain access to it, they need to send it here. So you go over here to Action, click on Make a Request. You put in your information here, and you follow all the prompts until the request goes through. And it'll say at the top, your request has been successful, or something, some such message like that. The book will arrive for you at Murphy Library. That's where you will check it out, and that is where you will return it. You're able to renew these just like anything else. Sometimes they get recalled, and it usually only takes a couple of days for these materials to reach you here. So it actually is a very effective way to search for books. It gives you a fairly good idea of what's available, period, because our holdings in the UW system are so extensive. In another video, I'll go over how to use the most extensive of all catalogs. It kind of depends on your project, which one you would need to start with, but Universal Borrowing is well worth your time to use that particular catalog in order to locate materials.